Ayan po, so we're live. And so good afternoon to everyone. Again, my name is John Elvira Busa. I am the Shrine Curator 2 of the Museo El Deposito. So welcome to our very first webinar here in the museum entitled KIlapsaw 2.0, a webinar about water sustainability and sanitation. So without further ado, let's begin the program. For us to start, and may I call on Ms. Catherine Kai Oliveros, the Historic Sites Development Officer of the Museo El Deposito National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Ms. Kai, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sir Jonel. So our very first webinar of the Museo El Deposito entitled Water Sanitation and Sustainability is an information campaign in partnership with Maynilad Water Academy and the Philippine Academy of Family Physicians. So to proceed to our first speaker, he is the chairman of the Department of Family Medicine, Infectious Diseases and Tropical Medicine of San Lazaro Hospital. Earning his Doctor of Medicine at the University of Santo Tomas, he is currently the chairman of the Department of Family Medicine, Infectious Diseases and Tropical Medicine, and the spokesperson for External Affairs of San Lazaro Hospital. He is also the National Board Director of the Philippine Academy of Family Physicians. Being a member of various technical working groups of the Department of Health in the control and management of various diseases, he is also an advocate of raising awareness in rabies, food and water diseases, and meningococcinia. Let us all welcome Ms. Dr. Ferdinand S. de Guzman.
Good afternoon everyone po sa mga viewers. Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. Okay, so first of all, disclosures po muna before I proceed with water supply and human health. The topic that I would be presenting this afternoon, so the importance of water supply and its effect on human health. So yung mga transmission po of waterborne diseases, I would like to make some disclosures. Of course, thank you po sa NHCP. And I would like to thank two of my Masters in Public Health students, Ma'am Cherry Racho and J. Ritz Cornista, and two of my residents, my chief resident, Dr. Ria Cabantac and Dr. Rainier David, para maganda po ang presentation ko this afternoon and it would be easy for you to understand. Okay, so let's go to the first slide po. Okay, so may I have the first slide? Okay, so trivia po muna tayo about this afternoon when it comes to water. Okay, so a person can live about a month without food, but only about a week without water. Okay, then if ang tao po, if a human does not absorb enough water, dehydration is the result, and we all know that dehydration can lead to death. Okay, now marami po nagtatanong, a lot of people are wondering why frozen water floats. Okay, pareho lang po silang tubig. Frozen water is 9% lighter than water, which is why ice floats on water. Okay, and another trivia po, less than 1% of the water supply on Earth can be used as drinking water. So less than 1% lang po ang pwede nating inumin. Kahit ang dami pong tubig sa mundo, less than 1% lang po ang water na maiinom natin. And when it comes to the amount of water in the body, so for an average adult po, the body contains 37 liters of water. And of these 37 liters, ito po ang composition. Usually, nagbibiruan ang mga parents natin when they scold us when we were much younger. Human brains are 75% water. So wala daw laman ang mga utak natin pag hindi tayo sumusunod or hindi nag-aaral. But actually, may laman yan because human brains are 75% water. Human bones po are 25% water. And human blood, okay, yung dugo po natin, tingin natin that's just dugo, but that consists of 83% water. Okay, so next slide po tayo after the trivia. Next slide, please. Okay, so definition of terms po muna tayo. Water supply, medyo napabilis po. Can I have the previous slide, please? Okay, so definition of terms po muna tayo, water supply and human health. So water supply, of course, ito po ang proseso of providing water in a systematic way through installed pumps and pipelines. So ito po yung tubig na umaabot sa atin. And human health, in relation to human health, ang human health po is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And hindi lang po siya merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so water supply in the Philippines po. So ano po ang supply natin? Saan ito nanggagaling? Saan po ito nakukuha? How come we have water supply in the Philippines? So ito po ang sources natin. So number one, of course, is rainfall. So ulan. So nagagali tayo because we have a lot of typhoons. We have a lot of depressions, storms. Pero that is a major source of water po in the Philippines. And of course, meron tayong tinatawag na surface water resources. We also have groundwater resources. So we have 18 major river basins and 421 principal river basins po. Okay, this is according to the National Water Regulatory Board. Now, this was set up po, created in 1974 under DENR. Ito po ang agency responsible for the water sector in the Philippines. Okay, so policy making po, regulatory functions, judicial functions within the Philippine government. So next slide po, alam na po natin ang sources of water supply in the Philippines. So ang sabi po ng Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, BFAR, there are 79 lakes in the country, mostly utilized for fish production. Of course, malapit po dito sa atin, Laguna Lake is the country's largest lake with a total area, of course, of 3,000 plus kilometers and one of the largest lakes in Southeast Asia. And going down south, we have the largest lake in Mindanao. This is Lake Lanao, and this is one of the ancient lakes. So lumang-luma na po, and it has still existed up to now. Okay, so next slide po. Okay, so groundwater po versus surface water. So background po tayo. What is groundwater? So ito po actually yung mga tubig na nanggagaling sa ulan. Okay, and of course also nanggagaling sa medyo mataas na lugar. So there are water coming from high sources which would go down to the lower heights. Okay, so ito yung groundwater. As compared to surface water po, this is water that is located at the Earth's surface. So yung mga lakes po, those are the sources of surface water. Okay, so next slide po. Okay, so Philippine groundwater tayo. We have about 50,000 square kilometers of reservoir po ng tubig. Okay, and ang source po nito, this is recharged by rain. Okay, so ang rainfall po in the Philippines ranges from 1,000 to 4,000 millimeters per year, and the seepage from 421 principal rivers and 59 natural lakes po. So hindi lang po ulan. Okay, so of course the water falls on these principal rivers and lakes. So contribution po ito, and this is the source of the Philippine groundwater. So ang available freshwater resource po natin, hopefully, na why am I mentioning this po? Kasi there might come a time we might have a water crisis. Pero ngayon, I hope we can maintain and we can have 145,900 million cubic meters per year. Okay, so this is based on 80% po probability for surface water and groundwater extraction po at 20,000 million cubic meters per year. Okay, so next slide po. So water availability again. So saan po ang mga potential sources of water? So na-mention ko na po sa inyo ang groundwater. So the highest potential source of groundwater is nasa Region 2 po. This is in Cagayan Valley. Highest potential source of surface water po is nasa Region 10, Northern Mindanao. And nandito po malapit ang Lake Lanao. Okay? Lowest potential source. So medyo mababa po ang potential source for both groundwater and surface water sa Central Visayas. And ang report na ito po, which I am showing to you, states that there might be a water availability deficit. So medyo baka ma-short po tayo ng tubig by the year 2025 in several daw river basins such as the ones in Pampanga and Agno, in Pasig, Laguna, and Cagayan Valley, and all other regions in Luzon. Okay, so ito po ang areas there might be a water availability deficit daw by the year 2025. So again, this is a very, very timely po na webinar, no, to emphasize that water is very, very important to us. Okay, so next slide po. So what has the government done? So ano po ang nagawa ng government so far? So looking back at history po, because this is sponsored by the National Historical Commission. So in 2004 po may batas na pinalabas. Okay, they came up with a Republic Act. This is numbered 9275. This is the Philippine Clear Water Act. So this would protect the country's water bodies from pollution from land-based sources po. It would provide for a comprehensive and integrated strategy to prevent and minimize pollution, and also for the protection, preservation, and revival of the quality of Philippine waters. Okay, so in other words po, ang Philippine Clear Water Act of 2004 would safeguard ang tubig natin. Okay, whether it's in Luzon, Visayas, or Mindanao. So our water sources would have been safeguarded by this Republic Act. Okay, so next slide po. Ito pong sa slide na ito, this is just to give you the idea, ano po ang penalties for those who would be committing prohibited acts. So yung mga bawal po gawin, of course, we all have our roles, pero meron pong mga agencies, meron pong mga, well, let's say organizations which commit some of these prohibited acts. So kailangan po, they have to undertake clean-up operations na usually saan po itong nakakakos ng irreversible water contamination of surface, coastal marine water. So alam natin sa industry po yan. And of course, we cannot live with industry, but industry has to have a watchdog. So ang batas na ito po would serve as the watchdog for the violations. So makikita nyo po, actually, ang violation po would not be less than 500,000 and not more than 3 million pesos. Okay? For each day po ito, no? Of the criminal charges may also be filed. But if you ask me, medyo maliit lang po ang penalty na ito compared to the consequences of the violations that some organizations, some companies are committing, are doing nowadays. Okay, so next slide po tayo. So from the fees and fines po, we go to quality assessment of surface water po in groundwater. Okay, so next slide po. So this part po, quality assessment po tayo. So how is water quality assessed? So may mga parameters po tayo. So dissolved oxygen po, this is just to give you an idea, but I will not be too technical about this. Pero importante po ang dissolved oxygen. So should you read in the papers or read the news, marinig nyo po ang dissolved oxygen in the water. Ang ibig lang pong sabihin nito, dissolved oxygen level na mas mataas po is indicative of better water quality. Okay? So in fact, there were news in the past, yung mga balita na a lot of fish kill, ang dami daw pong namamatay, and ang sabi one of the reasons attributed to this was the dissolved oxygen was very, very low. Okay, so another factor daw po, biochemical oxygen demand. Okay, so another one is total suspended solids. Okay, ang total suspended solids po, alam natin pag maraming suspended solids, marumi po ang tubig hanggang sa maging visible po ang dumi na yan. Now, total dissolved solids. Okay, so etong total dissolved solids, pwede pong hindi na natin makikita. Okay, ano po ang sources nitong total dissolved solids? So agricultural runoff po, leaching of soil, yan po ang sinasabing sources, contamination, and point source water pollution po from industrial or domestic sewage. So remember po, I think a few years back when the president ordered the closure of Boracay. So nobody ever thought, no, hindi natin maisip na pwede pala ipasara ang isang world-class tourist attraction, source of income for the Philippines. Kailangan na pong linisin ang Boracay, and I hope itutuloy po ito ng whoever would be in the next administration, because we want our beach waters, ocean water to be safe for swimming. So if we want to attract tourists, okay, hindi nga nakikita ang total dissolved solids. Actually, yung iba po nakikita po, no? Kasi may mga diretsong dumi po na nanggagaling sa mga resorts, sa mga bahay, diretso sa dagat. And how can we attract tourists when they go swimming? May sabay po na nagfo-float sa kanila. No? So hindi na dissolved solids po yan, kundi total suspended solids kasi visible po sila. And of course, heavy metals, where itong heavy metals na sinasabi po natin as a parameter of quality assessment. Ito po yung mga water bodies malapit sa mining, okay, electroplating, tanning, and other similar activities which are operating. So again, from Philippine industries po. Okay, so next slide po. So surface quality status po, makikita natin classification, okay, class AA, intended as public water supply. So ito po ang classification, isang A, suitable as water supply requiring conventional treatment. Class B, waters indebted for primary contact recreation. So pangligo lang po siya, no? Class C po, waters for recreation, boating, for fishery, so pangingisda po, and supply for manufacturing processes after treatment. Now, Class D, ito po yung agriculture, irrigation, livestock watering. Okay, so if you notice po, ang AA po is the one that is intended for public consumption, and of course, meron ng disinfection po ito, followed by A, and yung Class D po, this is mainly for industries, no? For business din po. Okay, so next slide po. So groundwater quality assessment, ito po nasabi ko na po. That's why Boracay had to be closed before, kasi po marami nang na-detect na pupu. In other words po, if we want to go scientific or technical, yung sinasabi po nating pupu, yan po yung coliform. Okay, so may na-pick up na po na coliform bacteria sa groundwater. Okay, groundwater po, pwedeng mainom yan. So it might be contaminated. Fecal coliform po, galing po sa dumi yan. So that means the water source is infected po. That's why they had to close Boracay para ma-ensure po ang quality of water in that tourist area. Okay, so next slide po. By the way, ang coliform po should be negative in any water sample. So sampling size of groundwater, so ito po ang different regions. Usually they check for this. So tinitingnan nila ang water source, dapat po potable siya, meaning na check, na analyzed. But then again, if it is for drinking water, ibang usapan po yun because it still has to undergo further disinfection. So ito po yung mga different regions where they take samples. Okay, so next po, next slide. Okay, levels of water supply. Okay, so notice nakalagay po, this came out in 1995 pa po, but this is still very, very useful hanggang ngayon. We can still follow these levels. So this came from NEDA po, no, yung brainchild po natin. Okay, level 1, point source. Okay, this is protected well or a developed spring with an outlet. Kaya lang po wala siyang distribution system. So galing po siya sa bundok. Usually nasa rural areas pa po ito where the houses are thinly scattered. So ito yung mga tinatawag naming GIDA po sa Department of Health, GIDA. Geographically isolated and malalayo pong lugar. That's why it's difficult for them to avail of health services. So dito po, level 1 kuminsan ang point source, no? Because balon lang po, protected well. Remember, that's the balon that we see in the rural areas sa provinces po. Spring, mountain water po, kuminsan naglalagay po sila ng bamboo. Okay, so if you grew up in the provinces and you're often in the mountains before, makikita po ninyo ang mga bamboos po, dyan dumadaan po ang tubig. Okay, and that's the source of the drinking water that's used by those households. Now level 2, ito po medyo meron na silang konting system. Okay, so level 2 po may pipe system now with communal or public faucets. Usually 4 to 6 households po ito within 25 meters distance. So itong level 2 po medyo may sistema na po ito, no? You can see in the picture, okay? Medyo maayos na po siya, no? There's a pipe where water can flow. Now sa baba po, if you look at the third picture in this slide, this is level 3. So now ito po yung medyo high level na tayo. Level 3 po is a waterworks system. So ito po, individual house connections based on a daily water demand po of more than 100 liters per person. So tayo po sa Metro Manila and of course highly urbanized cities and places, level 3 na po tayo, no? Ang waterworks system po natin. Okay, so next slide po. Okay, so baka naisip nyo po, how does water reach us? So just to give you an idea po, a day in the life of water. Okay, so number 1, if you look at this slide, number 1 po, the water source is Angat Dam. Okay, Ipo Dam, number 2. Number 3 po, La Mesa Dam. Okay, so from these water sources, ang mga dam na ito, okay, papunta po sila, they undergo treatment, water treatment, and okay, disinfection po sa Balara treatment plants. So remember, Balara treatment plants have always been there. Mula nung maliit po ako and matanda na ako, nandyan po ang Balara treatment plants. Okay, then from there also East La Mesa. So there's a treatment plant also at East La Mesa. Then it would undergo potability testing. So potability testing po, nandito na ang screening, nililinis na po ang tubig. So pag malinis na po yan, it has undergone the processes needed to clean the water. May network po of distribution. Okay? So from number 5 po, potability testing, may network and distribution. I think we have to thank Maynilad for this. From number 6 po, papunta na po ang number 7 sa customers po. That's why every morning, we take this for granted. Water comes from out of our faucets. Okay? Tinatake natin for granted, but pag wala pang tubig na lumabas sa mga gripo natin, ayan na. Everybody has a migraine kasi mangangamoy tayo, no? And we have to look for sources. So we have to think that water comes out of the faucet. No? These little things that we take for granted is very important. So from number 7 po, sa slide na ito makikita nyo po from the customers, so ano pa nangyayari sa tubig na marumi na nagamit na natin. So number 8 po, used water na po yan. So sanitation na yan, papunta sa number 9, sewerage, and pabalik na po yan sa rivers. So ito po ang tinatawag namin in my classes at Masters in Public Health, a day in the life of water. So paano po ang flow ng tubig na nanggagaling sa water source and paggamit na po siya, saan po siya napupunta. So you can look at number 10 here to the rivers. So ang mga rivers na ito po yung mostly used water na kasi nanggagaling po sila sa sewage. Okay? So nagamit na po ng babae sa septic tank. Okay? So next slide po. So water treatment, siguro po, again, I have mentioned to you a day in the life of water. This is just to give you an idea po of water treatment from reservoir. No? Raw water, ito po yung tubig na kailangang linisin. So mag-undergo po ng screening, then for it to be screened, kung ano yung mga dumi po, ano yung impurities, meron tayong dinadagdag to make the water pure. Kaya makikita niyo sa slide nito ang coagulants added. Then sedimentation is part of the screening or purifying process po, sedimentation. Then ito na po makikita niyo from sedimentation. So sa sedimentation po, tinatanggal natin yung mabibigat na impurities. Pupunta din po sa filtration. So fini-filter pa rin po. So ito po ang proseso. So next time you drink po a glass of water, isipin niyo na lang po ang haba ng proseso, no? That man has established for us to be able to drink just a glass of water. So ayan po sa filtration po, carbon, sand, and gravel are being removed. Then pH correction. So ano po itong pH correction na ito? Hindi naman po porque na-filter na siya, it has passed through sedimentation, safe na siya. pH correction po, yung pwede nating inumin, hindi siya pwedeng maging acidic masyado, no? In fact, they would say alkaline water daw is medicinal, mas maganda daw po. But of course, the water that Maynilad gives us is of course pwede nang inumin, okay? So pH correction daw po. Then anti-corrosion agents, okay, it's also there. Chlorination po is part of the process of purifying or cleansing. Then last part po in this graph is to homes. So lumalabas na po siya sa gripo, sa mga bahay-bahay natin. Okay, so next slide po. So nakita nyo na po how water is treated from impure to pure. Okay, so accessibility to water, so naipakita ko na po sa inyo ang proseso, but does everybody have access to water supply? Okay, of course, ang statistics kong ito, matagal na po ito, no? Pero previous reports say only 80% of the Philippines have access to water, no? Then of the 80% po na may tubig, only 44% are connected to level 3 systems. So sinabi ko nga po, level 3 system has the distribution, okay? So it makes water accessible to most of us. So level 3 po ang safest and most convenient sources of water supply. Yung iba po is either level 1 or level 2. Okay, so may mga from the LGUs po and community-based organizations. They are the ones, the biggest provider po next, serving 55% of those with access to water. Then of course the water districts at 20% and private operators at 5%. So siguro po nabago na ang mga statistics na ito. But this is just to give you an idea paano po, no, if water is really accessible to most Filipinos, no, to all Filipinos. Okay, so next slide po. Okay, kasi po I'm a doctor of medicine and this is the topic assigned to me. We now go to the toxins in drinking water. Now remember na tingnan na natin ang proseso paano mapalinis ang tubig, but there are still toxins in drinking water. Okay, so tingnan po natin kung ano-ano ang mga ito. Number 1 is fluoride. So dati po, fluoride to drinking water, our conception was it would reduce tooth decay. No? Kaya lang, recent studies have shown, no, na may side effects po siya, lalo na sa endocrine system. It can harm the thyroid gland. And meron pa pong isang pineal gland na na-affected po, no? So ito pong water fluoridation, responsible daw po ito, no, of the effect ng fluoride. Kaya 23 million Americans are taking Synthroid. Gamot po ito sa thyroid condition. Okay, fluoridated water doubles the risk of hypothyroidism. Nakalagay po dito, as you can see in the slide, it is so toxic that several countries have banned water fluoridation. Now, I was one of those who thought all the while noon na maganda talaga itong fluoride kasi look at toothpastes. Ang dami pong mga toothpaste which push for fluoride, blank with fluoride. Okay, makes teeth whiter, good for strengthening of teeth. I was in Europe many years ago, so tuwang-tuwa po ako because they would say that the people in Austria, yun po yung bansa where I realized that there was a lot of fluoride in the water. Sabi po nila, magaganda raw mga ngipin. So some Filipino nurses were telling me, yung mga ngipin po ng mga anak namin dito, Doc, magaganda because of fluoride. Okay? Kaya lang, I've learned to become aware of fluoride ever since kasi nga ito nga po ang mga findings. So I think our administrators would be careful in adding fluoride to drinking water, no? Kasi meron ng mga bagong revelations po and findings. Okay? Now, chlorine po ang next, okay? Chlorine, alam natin, this is useful for cleaning products and swimming pools, okay? Sanitize sewage and industrial waste. But this can cause respiratory problems po and damage cells, no? And long-term effects daw, memory loss and impaired balance. So sa kasi-swimming natin na mataas ang chlorine content, delikado po yun. Kahit sabihin natin this has disinfectant properties, okay? Meron pa po isa, lead. Okay, lead. Actually, marami po itong toxins. We can just go over them. Itong lead po, this is not really, nagkakaroon lang po ng lead sa tubig doon sa mga dinadaanang pipes. So yung mga lumang pipes po, if they are corroded, nagre-release po sila ng lead into the water. So paglabas po sa gripo, mataas po ang lead content. And alam natin by this time, this is not good for the body and affects children the worst. No? May mga side effects po siya, leading to behavioral problems, learning disabilities, and brain damage. So buti na lang po, there has been a replacement of pipes, okay, in the distribution system. So next slide po, tingnan na lang po natin yung ibang mga toxins, pero ito po ang pinaka-common now, mercury. Okay, so makaisipin nyo po, how come there's mercury in drinking water? Okay, and if you look at the slide, tingnan nyo po ang side effects, toxic po. No? Ang mercury, masama po ang effect nito, can cause brain damage, blindness, nerve damage, cognitive disability. So again, mercury po in drinking water may be a product of mining and industrial practices. And ang nakalagay pa nga dito, kahit sa kabilang mundo daw, others halfway around the globe, pwedeng umabot sa atin. No, the fruits of industry. Now, PVCs, okay, polychlorinated biphenyls. Ito po yung ginagamit sa fluorescent lights, no, insulation machinery. So, banned na po ito, pero nasa landfills pa po sila. That's why if you remember growing up, I was being told by my elders, naku, ang mga fluorescent na yan, mag-ingat kayo. Pag yan ay nabasag, pag yan ay iniwan nyo lang kung saan-saan may mga side effects yan. Okay? So, mag-ingat po tayo sa PCBs, although banned na siya. Arsenic, okay, actually this is really a poison. No? Now, how come may arsenic sa tubig? So, saan po, pag nagkaroon ng arsenic, ang natural source of water natin, improper waste disposal po yan from industries. Okay, so next slide po. So nakita na po natin several toxins. Next slide po. Okay, Perchlorate, hindi naman po siya lumampas po tayo. Can I go back? Okay. Ito po, hindi na ito common sa atin sa perchlorate, pero rocket fuel explosives po. Dioxins po, ito po ang burning of hazardous waste. Ito po ang binabantayan natin. So forest fires, cigarette smoking. That's why we're now having limitations, having restrictions. We're banning cigarette smoking kasi they can release dioxins. DDT po, younger years ko, very popular as an insecticide, pero hindi na po ito masyadong ginagamit. This is a cancer risk. HCB po, wala na rin po ito masyado because this was used as a pesticide before and may side effects po siya sa liver disease. Dactyl, okay, hindi naman po ito common sa atin and lalo na po ang NTBE. Okay. Sa US po siguro where industries are, common itong mga toxins na ito, pero buti na lang in the Philippines, we really do not document that this is present in our drinking water. Okay, so next slide po. Okay, so ito lang po is just to show to you some common household water treatment methods. So straining po, pag wala pang tubig, okay, trekking kayo and you get stranded somewhere else or na-quarantine kayo and wala pong tubig, okay, malinis na tubig, napunta kayo. So straining, pwede po disinfection. Now disinfection, pwede pong pakulo. A reminder ko lang po sa viewers natin ngayon, rolling boiling should be for at least 2 minutes. And of course, solar sa araw and some chemicals po, may mga tablets that we can use to purify or clean water. Dito po sa rolling boiling, nagre-reklamo po ang mga misis, mahal ang kuryente at wala na daw naiiwan pag nagpapakulo sila. Okay, so next slide po. These are household water treatment methods. I have included this in my lecture because this is still being done in some areas. No? Ito po yung pots 1, 2, 3. No? So, number 1 po, yan yung pinakamarumi. Number 2 po is medyo nalinis na. The sediments have settled down. And number 3 daw po is purified na po kasi we have waited for the sediments to settle down at the bottom. So when you start with this, yung tubig po sa pot 2, ilalagay po niyo yan sa pot 3. Okay, ang pot 3, we would assume na if you follow the process, malinis na po yan. No? But nililinis po ang mga pots na ito. Hindi porke lagay na lang tayo ng tubig. Baka kung minsan po hindi natin napansin, may lumot na ang number 1 and number 2. No? Even number 3. So this would still require, no? Linisin pa rin po ang mga pots na ito. So I was just wondering why I included this kasi historical commission po tayo. And I found this very amusing, yung 3-pot method po. No? So ginagawa pa raw po ito in some areas. Okay, so next slide po. Okay, types of bottled water. We can just go fast over this. No? Artesian, so ito yung sinasabi natin, a confined aquifer, underground layer of rock. Okay, actually, pag we see artesian, nung kabataan ko po, may mga artesian wells. So nowadays po, halos wala na akong makita artesian wells because they can become infected po, no, contaminated. Distilled water, of course, may nakikita tayo na purified na raw po ito, no? Boiled, then recondensed from the steam that the boiling produces. Mineral water, okay, so ito na po yung groundwater that contains at least 250 parts per million of dissolved solids. Okay, if you notice po, if you look at the side, ang mga example po, mga imported, mga bottled water na wala po sa Pilipinas. PWS, Public Water Source, okay, or also known as Municipal Water Supply. Mukhang mahirap yata ito sa Philippines, delikado, no? But of course, here again, going down the line, purified water, no? So must contain no more than 10 parts per million of dissolved solids. So kanina po na-mention ko itong total dissolved solids. So distillation po, deionization and reverse or osmosis are all purification methods. I think we have Aquafina here in the Philippines and also the Sani. So these are examples of purified water. Sparkling, ito medyo social, no? Of course, some of you may prefer to use sparkling water sa may carbon dioxide po na binalik dito kasi nawawala daw po during the treatment process. So example nito is Perrier water, and last in the list is spring water. So underground formation, siguro sa listahan na ito, I would just go for purified water, no? And of course, advice ko lang po, no, to the public, hindi naman po, I'm not discriminating against people na naghahanap buhay, but for those selling bottled water in the streets, siguraduhin nyo lang po na that you know the brand and it is sealed, no? In fact, sa mga conventions ng mga doktor, you would know what doctors prefer, no? Lalo na ang PPS, Philippine Pediatric Society. They would always tell us if it is okay to mention a brand. Bawal yata mag-mention ng brand, okay. But there are some water po na delikadong bumili tayo sa kalye, sa highway, because hindi tayo sure na baka kung saan lang po kinuha yan. Okay, next slide po. So at least nakita nyo na po, because bottled water is a big business nowadays. Ang legal policy and framework, kasi po I included this because this is sponsored by the National Historical Commission. So i-run through lang po natin dito. 1976 po, baka hindi pa pinanganak si ma'am dito, no? So there was a presidential decree, National Water Code. So dito nag-start na po tayo, no? To may ensure that water is safe for the population. Tapos may mga Republic Acts na po. Okay, you can see here, may presidential decree. Environmental Impact Statement System 1978. Again, hindi pa pinanganak si ma'am. Ako pa lang po, no? Environmental Impact Assessment, and of course, Local Government Code. Ito yung sa devolution, enforcement of laws po on sanitation, nasa LGUs na po, and the provision of basic services such as water supply, sanitation, and flood control. So legal policy lang po yan. We just to make you familiar with this, na may mga batas na pong pinasa. Way back pa po na hindi pa pinanganak ibang viewers natin. So that's history. Next slide po. Okay, again, water control naman ito. So Clean Water Act po, ito yung 2004. Yung iba po dito na ako 1938, kahit ako po hindi pa ako pinanganak dito, no? Pollution Control Law, so notice 1970s, Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. So notice, maganda po ang mga batas natin, no? Then, ito pa po, itong Toxic Substances and Hazardous and Nuclear Waste Control Act. Okay? So this is just to give you an idea na may mga batas po pertaining to water control in the Philippines. Ito po ang pinakamaganda, the recent Clean Water Act 2004. Okay, so next slide po. Again, ang dami pong Republic Acts. Well, anyway, may copy po ang National Historical Commission nito in case you're interested po. Makikita po ninyo some of the orders are from the DENR, mga AO po regarding mercury, so chemical control order for cyanide. So ito yung mga chemicals po, no, which pose risks to water. Okay, so next slide po. Eto, meron isang presidential decree. Can we go back po? Sorry. Okay. Tingnan nyo po yung Presidential Decree 281. Creation of the Pasig River Development Council in 1973. Hindi pa rin pinanganak si ma'am tsaka si sir dito, no? Now, bakit po Pasig River Development Council? Ang biruan po namin nito during my younger years, when many years ago, it was said that the biggest toilet in the Philippines daw was the Pasig River. No? So medyo wala na po siya ngayon, hindi na siya toilet ngayon. No? Nag-improve na po siya. That's why in 1973, they had this presidential decree, Pasig River Development Council. So halos wala na po tayong makikitang lumulutang-lutang na coliform ngayon sa Pasig River. Okay, so next slide na po, proceed na tayo. Okay, East Avenue Treatment Plant po. Ito po ay naging project in 2010. Okay, Manila Water as sewage service provider completed the East Avenue Sewage Treatment Plant. Okay, so going through the slide, ito po ang actually pag sinasabi pong water analysis, one of the DOH hospitals po ang East Avenue, ang kanilang hospital best practice is water analysis. So dati po, and until now, every 6 months po, chine-check po ang tubig ng hospitals sa East Avenue. So water analysis po. Okay, so the East Avenue, okay, sewage treatment plant is the latest of 36 total existing wastewater treatment facilities completed and operated by Manila Water throughout the concession area in partnership with Manila Water, okay, Quezon City Local Government, DENR. Okay, so next slide po. So East Avenue Treatment Plan po yan. Okay, so next slide. Ito po just to show to you na ito yung report po, the NWRB in 2015. So 85.5% po ang households nationwide may access sa tubig, 20,000 plus po were under service providers po dito, no, nationwide. 4,700 po the water supply service providers. Okay, then 79% po water utilities were accessible to Filipinos. So this was just the water report, an improvement po of the previous reports. Okay, listahang tubig po, water register project nila. So they were listing the achievements po by 2015. So dumami na po ang naabutan ng availing of level 3 or yung sinasabi nating ideal water supply. So 85.5% po of the total population served. Okay, so next slide po. Okay, dito na po tayo. We come to the last part po. So as a clinician, ito po ang concern ko. Now in 2017 July, DOH came up with a list because I think this was because of the yung masamang panahon ng taon na yun, no? So ito daw po ang mag-ingat tayo. So these are the water diseases transmitted through water. Okay? So number 1 po is typhoid fever. So typhoid fever po, isa ito sa mga sakit na ang lagnat ay umaabot ng 7 days, no? Pataas ng pataas po ang tawag ng mga doktor dito, tumataas ang temperatura po, ang kalentura ng pasyente. So kung first day po 38, pangalawang araw po nagka-38.5, 39, 39.5, 40. So step ladder po, parang umaakyat po ang hagdan. So pag tinanong namin ang nanay, ilang araw na po ang lagnat? 7 days na po. Umiinit po siya. Ang kalentura niya pataas ng pataas. And hindi siya nakakapupo first few days. Then later on, dumubi po siya, medyo basa or maitim. Typhoid fever po ito. Hindi po ito pwede sa bahay. In fact, dati po, pag may pasyenteng namatay sa typhoid fever, closed casket po yan. No, hindi pwede ang lamay, hindi pwedeng buksan po ang coffin, sarado po. This is one of the diseases na noon ay sarado ang coffin, but of course, bago na natin. No? Typhoid fever po. Okay? Another name for this po, pag hindi namin na-identify ito by laboratories sa areas na walang laboratory to identify Salmonella typhi, yun po ang organism. Ang tawag po namin dito is enteric fever. Okay. Now, number 2, okay, cholera po. Kami po, generation ko, naabutan namin ang cholera. No? Ang shortcut po nito, ang tawag namin sa cholera is just Eltor. No, but it's a strain actually. I remember growing up with cholera, nagsasabi ang mga nanay, sinasabihan kami ng mga elders namin, mag-ingat kayo, huwag maligo, baka makainom kayo ng tubig sa kung saan-saan, marumi. At yung tubig kung saan-saan kayo umiinom, magka-Eltor kayo. Now, this was very deadly many years ago. Of course, ngayon maganda. Halos wala na pong cholera ngayon kasi index of sanitation po ito. Pag sinabi ko pong index of sanitation, Pag may typhoid fever po, pag may cholera, that means marumi po ang drinking water. Itong cholera po, just to give an idea, natutuyuan po kaagad ang tao. Severe dehydration, so acute dehydrating diarrhea po ang tawag ng mga doktor. Pag may cholera case po noon, then nauso itong mga pelikula na zombies, ang tawag po namin sa cholera patient is living dead. Okay. Now, bakit living dead po ang cholera? 0-0 po ang BP pero buhay ang pasyente. So meaning malalim ang mata, cold clammy siya, meaning kung hahawakan niyo po ang patient, malamig na malamig po siya because of severe dehydration. Pag chinek ang BP, naku, napapalundag po ang mga interns, tumatakbo po sila because, sir, wala pong BP, 0-0 pero buhay ang pasyente, gising. So living dead po ang tawag namin sa cholera. Ito po ang makikita po ninyo ito, maybe sa museums na lang, nakahiga sila sa kama. Okay, sa National Historical Commission, I hope you still have that bed. Yung kama po na may butas, I think it's called Watten bed. Meron po ang San Lazaro, yung kamang may butas. Kasi remember, pupo na lang po ng pupo ang pasyente, hindi niya mapigilan, magdadry po siya. And may amoy po ito, rice water stools. Amoy ng hinugasan na bigas. Nawala na po yung kama namin, no? Na I was holding on to it because it's a museum piece. Ako baka nakasama na sa na 4 kilo na siguro yun na kung sino mang nakakuha. But it was a museum piece. No? Makikita nyo po ang kama pag may butas sa gitna, hindi po yan para sa panganganak. Sa ilalim po niyan, may balde, sinushoot po ang pupo ng pasyente. So sisigaw po kami, medical clerk po is a graduating medical student. So kukunin po niya ang balde, titimbangin po niya kung gaano kadami ang dumi, kasi i-measure po namin yun to assess dehydration. Pero cholera po, lahat ng cholera patients, severe dehydration po ang assessment namin. So talagang severe po ang pagkatuyo niya. Ang dextrose po nito, 4, no? 2 kamay, 2 paa pa kuminsan, or kung 2 lang po, tawag namin is double setup. Okay? Wala na po yung mga, may upuan din po na may butas, nagagamit po namin, pero yung mga upuan na may butas para na po yung sa mga buntis, no? Pero yung kama po na may butas, I hope we can still, the National Historical Commission can find some of this. I think UST has 1 cholera bed. Okay? Museum po nila. Number 3, okay, ang sabi natin waterborne, so iniinom. Now, number 3 po, you are very familiar with this. Ihi ng mga daga, dumi ng mga daga, okay? Pwede rin po siyang makuha ingesting contaminated food or water. Pero paano po siya nakukuha primarily? Exposure po sa sugat, lalo na sa flood waters. Okay, so broken skin po, naglalakad kayo sa baha, may naapakan kayo, there's a scratch. So pwedeng pumasok po ang flood waters which are infected. So ito po, hindi masyado po ang ingestion ang pag-inom, pero exposure is to contamination sa sugat po. By the way, advice ko lang po sa mga misis, pag dry ang skin po ninyo sa paa, yung mga cracks po sa talampakan natin, kaya kailangan isama ninyo yan sa lotion, pwede pong pumasok ang contaminated water dyan. So leptospirosis po. Again, if you look at this, 1, 2, 3, the number 4, hepatitis A, mga index of sanitation po ito ng isang city. Pag marami pong cases na ganito, marumi po ang city. Well, I'm happy to tell you, kumonti na po ang mga cases na ganito in the Philippines. No? Leptospirosis, of course, kung baha, but again, binaha tayo. Alam na po ng mga Filipinos what to do if exposed to contaminated water. Now, hepatitis A, of course, ito is sa pagkain. No? Kung hepatitis B po, familiar kayo sa karayom, sa sex, and other modes of transmission. Hepatitis A po, sa pagkain at pag-inom po na hindi malinis. So I hope again authorities should be strict with street food. No, street food, mga bata po, so bantayan ng mga nanay, they should be aware that street food may not be monitored, may not have passed sanitary standards, walang permit po na malinis yung nagtitinda. So you might get hepatitis A, so one of the oldest diseases po ito, no? Ang mode of transmission po ito is fecal oral sa pagkain po at sa iniinom. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 po, naglabas ng advisory ang DOH in 2017 and hanggang ngayon po there's a lookout for this because these are waterborne diseases. And now for the last disease po na i-mention ko, which is very important, look at number 5. Nagkagulo po tayo because everybody thought we were free from polio. Pero polio cases were identified, the polio virus were identified in wastes. Okay? Sa Manila po, na bakit po tayo nag-worry because of the presence of polio virus? 1, 2, 3 polio viruses. Kasi po fecal oral route po ito. And remember, infantile paralysis po, ang paralysis dito is permanent. Ngayon, you would be surprised, no? Kasi sa OPD po, outpatient department namin, nung lumabas yung balita sa polio, hindi po alam ng mga pasyente namin kung ano ang polio. They do not know what poliomyelitis is. Paano po nakukuha yun? Ano po ang magiging komplikasyon pag nagka-polio? Okay, because nawala na po kasi ang cases of polio. That's why we were really alarmed na may identified na may polio pala, no? And if this would affect water sources, okay, contaminated water source, fecal oral po ito, pwede sa tubig makuha, ang mga bata po at risk. Of course, for old people like me, I don't have to worry about polio anymore, no? Kasi I remember po yung patak nung unang panahon, nabigyan po ako ng patak, yung oral polio vaccine. So number 5 po, I have included this because this is a possibility po dahil fecal oral route po ito. No? And it can cause paralysis and paralysis po is permanent. Okay? So ito po ang mga waterborne diseases. Marami pa pong sakit na makukuha through water. Pero kung mag-iingat po tayo, we can recover from them. So yung mga tinatawag nating infectious diarrhea, no? At this point po, kasi we will be going to prevention na po, pero ito po ang mga diseases of public health importance na sinabi ko po, okay? Diarrhea, as a parting note, everybody has experienced diarrhea. So, ingatan lang po na hindi tayo matuyuan. So, water po, replacement, fluids by fluids. Ang tawag namin dyan is water or oresol ad lib. Yun po ang iniinom namin pag may nagtatai. Okay, pag may nagtatai, yun po ina-advise namin. So, that is how we would correct infectious diarrhea brought about by waterborne diseases. Okay, so next slide po. Tapos na po tayo sa impact of water, sanitation, and public health. So itong statistics po, comparison lang po, okay, diarrhea, cholera, so may cases po of the cholera. By the way, isasama ko lang po ang rotavirus. Ito pong rotavirus, hindi po ito common during my younger years. But the government nowadays was able to identify na po that rotavirus is a common cause. Ito po, confirmed rotavirus, common cause of diarrhea in the very young. Kaya may bakuna po ang gobyerno against rotavirus. Cholera po, may bakuna yan. Pero of course ngayon, sanitation na tayo. Rotavirus, may vaccine po, but we're all on the way. No? Okay? On the way na po na controlling diarrhea brought about by rotavirus, hepatitis A, and of course typhoid fever. Marami pa po sa stats na ito. Okay, so next slide. So, ito na lang po, i-mention ko na lang po what the government has been doing. So, November 2017 na start po ang Zero Open Defecation Program. Ano po ibig sabihin ng ZOD? Zero Open Defecation. So, ayaw po natin na bumalik ang mga tao sa Pasig River. No? Ayaw nating maging biggest toilet ulit ang Pasig River. So, nag-start na po tayo ng bigyan ng toilets po ang mga Filipinos. Tigilan para ma-stop po natin ang open defecation, meaning kung saan-saan lang po magpupupo. No? So DOH has launched a communication campaign, Goodbye Dumi, Hello, Hello. Hello, Healthy. So yung mga train na dumadaan po, PNR trains dumadaan sa Riles, wala na tayong nakikitang tinatapon ng mga dumi. Kasi during my younger years, pag dumadaan po sa homes along the Riles, dun po nila tinatapon yung mga plastic, mga dyaryo. Ano po ang laman nun? Pupo po. So we want to put an end to that practice. So zero open defecation program. Okay, so next slide. Fast facts, ito lang po na-emphasize ko na po ito. Every 21 seconds daw buong mundo may namamatay daw po from water-related illness. So second biggest killer of children po, unsafe water. And according to the DENR, 55 people die daily from diseases caused by a lack of sewage and sanitation facilities. So hopefully ma-remedy na po natin ito. Then eto po, tingnan nyo po, I don't know kung sino ang maapektuhan nito. These pictures were provided by my students because I told them look for occupational hazards. Tingnan niyo po na bilog. They're working sa marumi, sanitation, kanal, or sa ilalim ito, no, sa manhole. Nakachinelas lang po sila, hindi sila nakabota. Look at them, okay? So kawawa po ang mga kapwa Filipino natin na naglilinis para magkaroon tayo ng malinis na tubig. So next slide po. Okay, next slide po. Tingnan niyo po ito, naku, ay sorry po, lumampas yung dalawang picture. May I have the two pictures? Tingnan niyo po, oh, naku, wading sa tubig na yan, naku, hindi lang po leptospirosis makukuha nila. And look at this one, ang lalaki, no, hindi lang ito septic tank, ilalaki sa ilalim ng kalye. And wala siyang gear, protective gear, chinelas. So sabihin niyo po na water diseases caused which are waterborne sa pag-inom lang, hindi po sa trabaho din po. Just like leptospirosis. And again, we go to my last slides. Next po. Paano po natin how would we prevent these diseases? So hand hygiene. Hugas ng kamay like what we are doing now sa age of COVID. Hugas-hugas po. Then water safety interventions, na-discuss ko na po ito. Proper food handling, I have touched on this. Mag-iingat tayo sa mga tinitinda na street food, okay? Proper excreta disposal, na-discuss ko na rin po ito, disposal of dumi. Pag may coliform po ang dumi, mag-ingat po tayo that water is contaminated. Of course, vaccines. So na-mention ko na po ang rotavirus vaccine. Of course, may typhoid fever vaccine din po. Now, supplements, mga doktor po ngayon, there's a trend now to use probiotics pag may nagtatai. May zinc din po, yung ginagamit natin ngayon sa COVID, immune system. So ginagamit din po yun sa prevention of to shorten the period of diarrhea, zinc po. Okay, so ito po ang how we would prevent these diseases. Okay, at least we have touched all of these. So next slide po. Oh, this is my last slide. So bakit po ito ang pinakita ko? We have been discussing shortage of water, waterborne diseases. Now, since this is the National Historical Commission, this film came out sa 90s po. So kinuha ko po ito sa pelikulang Waterworld. Now, that time, nobody bothered to watch this movie. Flop scene na po siya. But nowadays po, this movie is very important. If you have time, please include this in your movie list. Waterworld po, napakaraming tubig pero walang tubig na mainom. Okay? The cold regions, the glaciers have melted. And in fact, at the beginning of the movie po, okay, a few seconds na lang po, no? Umihi si Kevin Costner, na filter niya ang water, ininom po niya, and he used his urine to water the plant. Again, I hope this will not happen in the future. No? So sa mga children po natin, to the young ones here, who will inherit the earth, I hope the Earth in the future will not be like this. So this is a movie worth watching for, lalo na po with the age of climate change and biodiversity nowadays. Tubig po is a reminder that water is a very, very important commodity. So with this, okay, thank you very much po.
Thank you, Doc De Guzman, for the very informative topic. So, yung nga, Doc, napanood ko nga yung Water World noon, nung bata pa ako. So, nakita ko yung scarcity ng water. So, paano pa kaya pag dumating tayo sa ganung punto na kailangan na nating inumin ang ating sariling ihi? Wag naman sana. Oo po. So, okay po. Thank you, Doc. So, let's proceed to our second speaker.
I-unmute daw, sir.
So, yung mga questions po natin para kay Doc De Guzman will be entertained after. Okay po. So, our second speaker is a licensed guidance counselor, teacher, and psychometrician. Dr. Oliver B. Santa Ana has 20 years of professional experience in corporate and educational settings. Dr. Santa Ana is the head and senior manager of the Academic Services section of the Maynilad Water Academy. To date, Dr. Santa Ana is the coordinator for environmental psychology, a special interest group of the Psychological Association of the Philippines. He obtained his PhD in educational psychology and MA in University De La Salle University, Manila. So let us all welcome Dr. Oliver B. Santa Ana of the Maynilad Water Academy.
Hi Kay, good afternoon. Good afternoon sa ating viewers.
Good afternoon.
Marami pong salamat sa National Historical Commission of the Philippines at sa Museo El Deposito para sa pag-anyaya sa amin dito sa KIlapsaw 2.0. Ngayon po, ako po ay naatasa na magsalita tungkol sa water and sanitation education. So ibabahagi ko po sa inyo ang slides tungkol sa paksang ito. Naka-disable po yung ating participant screen sharing. Okay. Yan. So ang nakikita po ninyo ngayon sa screen ay ang Maynilad Water Academy. At ang paksa po natin para sa hapong ito ay Water and Sanitation Education. Ang magiging daloy po ng aking lecture para po sa hapong ito ay una tungkol po sa amin, about us, what is the importance of water and sanitation education, approaches to teaching WASH or water sanitation and hygiene, and opportunities for teachers and students. Alam po natin na karamihan po ng viewers natin ngayon ay mga guro. At ang mga guro po ay ating pong kaakibat sa pagpapalaganap ng edukasyon tungkol sa tubig at kalinisan. So una po, nais ko pong ipakilala sa inyo na ang Maynilad Water Academy ay bahagi po ng Maynilad. Ang Maynilad po ay nagpo-provide ng serbisyo sa West Zone ng Metro Manila. At ang Maynilad po ay bahagi po ng MWSS. Ang amin pong layunin is to provide safe, affordable, and sustainable water solutions. At our purpose, being a basic service provider, one of the core duties is to ensure the sustainability of our water business and operations. Kaya po, because of that, na-establish po ang Maynilad Water Academy na ang amin pong misyon ay bahagi nito ay ang nation building. Ngayon po, ang Maynilad Water Academy po ay naitatag noong 2011. Ang nakikita nyo po sa sa inyong screen ay aming Executive Director na si Rodora N. Gamboa. Ang Academy po has taken upon itself the task of knowledge sharing and education to help the water sector. Ang amin pong layunin is to capacitate ang mga engineers, no, teachers, professionals in the field of water sector. Pero nakita po namin na hindi po, parang kailangan pa po na mas palawakin pa ang pagbabahagi ng kaalaman tungkol sa tubig. Kaya nga po, nagkaroon kami ng ideya na bakit hindi natin ibaba yung usapin ng tubig sa basic education. Kaya po ito, nagkaroon po kami ng mga programa para sa mga estudyante at para din po sa mga guro. Ngayon po, maaring ang tanong natin is why is water and sanitation education important? Diba sabi nga nila, may mga tao na pwedeng mabuhay ng walang pag-ibig, pero walang tao na mabubuhay ng walang tubig. So napaka-importante po ng tubig sa ating buhay. At importante rin po na malaman natin ang kahalagahan ng kalinisan dahil kasabay ng kalinisan ay ang kalusugan. Ngayon po, inuugnay namin ang kahalagahan ng water and sanitation education sa kasaysayan. No? Bakit? Ang hindi marunong lumingon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makararating sa paroroonan. We study history to know the past, to understand the present, and to predict the future. Kumbaga, tignan po ninyo yung nakikita ninyo sa screen nyo. No? Noon, meron tayong mga aguador. Ito po yung mga ilan sa mga larawan na makikita po ninyo kung kayo po ay nakapunta na sa Museo El Deposito na noon naglalabas sila sa Pasig River, nagsasalok sila doon sa mga fire hydrants ng tubig. Pero itong mga pangyayari na noon, salamat sa pagbabago, no, sa mga modernisasyon pagdating sa patubig natin, hindi na po ganyan ngayon ang sitwasyon, di ba? Kasi pag binuksan nga po ninyo inyong faucet, makikita ninyo na merong tubig. At kung tatanungin naman, ito bang tubig na to ay ligtas? Tinitiyak po ng MWSS at ng Maynilad na ang tubig pong ito ay pasado sa Philippine National Standard for Drinking Water at ito pong PNSDW na ito ay ang DOH ang nagtakda. At ito po ay araw-araw na ang tubig po natin ay araw-araw na sinusuri, no, sa mga laboratorio. Pero mayroon pong mga pagsubok. No? Mga pagsubok ngayon, halimbawa po, sapat na tubig para sa lahat. Kasi dito sa Metro Manila, maaring mayroon tayong tubig. Pero paano po sa ibang bahagi o ibang sulok ng Pilipinas? At maging sa ibang panig ng mundo, meron pa rin po bang tubig? No? Water pollution, nakikita natin na may mga ibang mga ilog na parang madumi, na pabayaan. Yung iba din dumadagdag sa pollution dahil nga yung kanilang basura ay hindi nila sinesegregate at basta na lamang nilang tinatapon kung saan. Clean toilet for every household. Kanina po sa pagbabahagi, no, o sa lecture ni Dr. De Guzman, nabanggit na may mga ibang lugar na mayroon pa ring problema sa sanitation. No? Sanitation facilities, isa rin po yan sa mga pagsubok o hamon ngayon, at waste segregation. Kaya nga po, kung ito yung mga problema, paano po kaya yung mga pwede nating maging solusyon? Kasi ang tanong natin, natuto ba tayo? Natututo ba tayo dun sa mga problema? Nakakahanap ba tayo ng solusyon? Hindi po madaling maghanap ng solusyon kung ang iaasa lang po natin to sa isang sektor ng lipunan. Kaya nga po, naniniwala kami na kung ang industriya, water industry at ang academe, no, ang mga educational institutions ay magtutulungan, sa pagtutulungan ito, naipapabahagi natin ang mga sapat na kaalaman at impormasyon para po ma-educate ang ating publiko, no? Lalo na yung mga next generation. At kapag po tayo ay we educate people about water, sanitation, and hygiene, dito po naniniwala tayo na magkakaroon ng pagbabago. So change is possible. Isa po sa pinaniniwalaan namin na malaki po ang papel ng mga guro sa pagbabahagi ng kaalaman tungkol sa water and sanitation. Kumbaga partner po natin ang mga teachers. Teachers are partners for positive change and skills development. Kaya nga po, sa partnership namin with teachers, no, with schools, kasama rin sa pinopromote namin na kailangan po nating siguruhin, tiyakin na sa mga susunod na henerasyon, magkakaroon po tayo ng mga professional na tutulong, no, sa pagsisiguro na magkakaroon pa rin tayo ng professionals in the water sector. So pag sabi po nating professionals in the water sector, ito po yung mga engineers, yung mga nagtatrabaho sa laboratory, mga scientists, no, mga doktor at iba pa. Noong 2015, sinabi po sa Future of Jobs Report ng World Economic Forum na itong mga skills na to, like complex problem solving, coordinating with others, people management, critical thinking, hanggang sa creativity ay kailangan, no? Kailangang maituro sa mga estudyante. Ngayon naman pong 2020, mapapansin nyo, yung complex problem solving nandoon pa rin. Pero nagkaroon ng bahagyang pagbabago. Ano itong pagbabago? Tinuturo na ngayon na kailangan maging mapanuri, no, yung critical thinking and creativity. Bakit? Itong critical thinking and creativity ay ilan lamang sa mga competencies na kailangan nating ituro sa ating mga estudyante, sa mga mag-aaral, upang sila po ay makabuo o makaisip ng innovations or solusyon sa mga problema, no, ng ating sa kasalukuyan. Isa ring paraan para maituro natin ito ay ang pagkakaroon ng internship and part-time job experiences. Ayon po sa Bureau of Local Employment, Labor Market Trends, nagkaroon po sila ng survey na kinonduct ng Job Street noong 2015. At ito po ay sinalihan ng 400 companies. At lumalabas na ang internship and part-time job experiences are essential factors during hiring process. Kung baga, kung ang mga mag-aaral ay magkakaroon ng kaalaman sa ano ba yung nangyayari sa aktwal na industriya, dito po mas malaki yung chance nila na magkaroon ng o matanggap, no, sa trabaho. Isa rin po sa mga nais kong ibahagi sa inyo yung top 5 behavioral skills, no. Sa pagturo po natin ng water and sanitation education, kailangan po nating tignan, meron bang willingness to learn? Ano? Nandyan ba ang initiative, ang honesty and integrity? Ang being a self-motivated learner, self-starter, at yung pag-develop ng self-confidence. Ito pong mga behavioral skills na to ay naituturo ba natin? Kasama rin po yung top 5 functional skills, communication skills, trainability, competence, problem solving, at saka analytical skills and technical know-how. So pag kinumbine po natin itong behavioral and functional skills, ito po ay makakatulong sa pagbuo ng kaalaman ng ating mga mag-aaral. Ngayon po kami sa Academy naniniwala na mahalaga ang 21st century learning and innovation skills. Ito po yung tinatawag na 4Cs, no? At alam natin yung mga guru natin ay pamilyar na dito. At kami po sa Academy, ang mga programa na naiisip namin, kailangan ay ma-develop ang pagiging malikhain, no? Like yung creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. Sa academic services po, kasama po dito ang pagbigay ng kaalaman sa mga kabataan, sa high school and college students, teachers and educators, at pagbuo rin po ng mga partnerships and research, no, sa mga pamantasan or universities. Kasama po sa ginagawa rin po ng Maynilad Water Academy ay ang pagbuo ng mga modules. At ito pong mga modules na to ay binibigay po namin ng libre. Ang aming pong comprehensive education campaign ay kasama nito yung pagbuo ng modules na ginawa namin with the University of the Philippines, DISMED, at saka ng Foundation of the Promotion of Mathematics and Science Education and Research at ng UNESCO. Ang goal po ng module na ito ay maituro, maibahagi ang kahalagahan ng water, sanitation, and environmental protection. Meron pong 15 modules on water and sanitation na amin pong nabuo. At ito po, kung gusto po ninyo ng kopya po nito, pwede nyo pong i-email ang El Deposito or kahit po kami sa Maynilad Water Academy. At kami pong ibibigay sa inyo ng libre po itong mga modules na ito para po magamit ninyo sa inyong mga klase. So, kagaya nito, no, yung module number 1, how do we use and save water? How do we keep water clean? What are ways to prevent diseases caused by dirty food and water? How do you prevent diseases acquired from stagnant water? What are the processes in the water cycle? How is water consumption measured? How can you be a leak detective and water saver? Why do we need to protect catchments? What are the effects of typhoons, droughts on water supply? How do we measure water rainfall? How can you convert seawater to fresh water? Which is better, bottled water or tap water? How does rainwater reach underground? How does a wastewater system work? And how does water treatment make water potable? Kailangan kong basahin yung 15 modules of water and sanitation po para magkaroon kayo ng idea kung ano-ano nga po ba itong mga modules na meron kami. At ito pong modules na ito ay amin pong pina-review sa Department of Education, at ang naging mungkahi po nila sa amin ay tiyakin na ang mga modules ay nakabangga or nakaangkop sa particular na grade level. So ito pong modules na to from K to 12, no? Nakapasok po siya. So for example, yung module 2, 8 and 9, ang suggested grade level po dyan ay for grade 1, 2 and 10. At ang suggested subjects for integration or correlation ay araling panlipunan. So yan po yung makikita ninyo. Specific module, suggested grade level, and suggested subjects for integration or correlation. Ngayon po ang tanong, so ito ang water and sanitation. Paano po ba siya ituturo? Diba? Paano ba natin ito maibabahagi sa ating mga estudyante? Kadalasan yan po yung mga nagiging challenge para sa ating mga guro. So una po, pwede natin gawin ay yung tinatawag na direct approach or planned instruction as a separate subject. For example, sa K to 10 health curriculum, meron pong topic on sa grade 5 na injury prevention, safety, and first aid, community, and environmental health. So pwede nang dun sa 4th quarter pag-usapan na po siya. Tapos pagdating nila ng grade 6, pwede pa rin po siyang pag-usapan, no, sa paksa ng consumer health and environmental health. Pagdating naman po ng grade 9, pwede rin siyang pag-usapan sa community and environmental health. So nakikita natin yung spiral progression na alam natin na ang ating mga teachers ay familiar dito. So yan po yung isang paraan na pwede nating maturo, ang environmental health and community health. Pangalawa naman is to correlate, no, infuse in a whole subject. So for example, paano ba magbasa ng metro para mas maintindihan ng mga bata at maging pwede nila ito mapag-usapan sa kanilang mga tahanan. So sample would be mathematics assignment from module 6, how is water consumption measured? So nakikita po ninyo sa inyong mga screen. Meron ditong tanong, study the readings in the water meter below and then note the numbers in each water meter. Then subtract the reading from January from the reading for February. So makikita ninyo, ginagamit natin ang mathematics sa pagtuturo ng tubig dahil nga ito ay naka-infuse na. No? Pangatlo is integrate. No? Learning areas are on equal footing. So for example, yung principle behind the music, arts, physical education, and MAPE, pwede nating gamitin to sa pagtuturo ng water and sanitation. So pwede nating sabihin sa mga estudyante natin for them to come up with a poem or to compose a song using water. No? Or pwede rin naman na merong water activity, water-related activity na pwedeng gamitin during physical education class. Pang-apat, incidental or teachable moments. Yung nakikita po ninyo sa screen, yan po ay isang programa namin, yung Ugnayang Tubig at Kasaysayan. Kasama po namin dyan ang Museo El Deposito. Tapos yung mga estudyante, nagpunta po sila doon sa museum at tinignan nila kung ano yung pagkakaiba ng pamamaraan ng patubig noon at sa kasalukuyan. No? Isa pong example pa dito yung sa Science, Earth, and Space assignment from Module 5. What are the processes in the water cycle? So ito familiar po karamihan sa atin dyan. Yung sa may water jar, or yung bottle rather. Tapos merong seed, tapos titignan nila yung water, kung anong mangyayari sa evaporation, etc. No? Yan po. marami pa po talagang pamamaraan na pwede natin gamitin sa pagtuturo ng water and sanitation education. Pero ngayon siguro ang tanong natin, paano na yan? Naka-quarantine or merong mga restrictions pagdating sa paglabas. Kaya po dito natin gagamitin yung e-learning or webinar. So kaya po nagpapasalamat kami sa National Historical Commission at sa Museo El Deposito dahil po sa pamamagitan nito na nagkaroon po tayo ng talakayan, nagkaroon tayo ng pagbisita sa mga paksa na may kinalaman sa tubig at sa kalinisan. So yan po, pwede po tayo magkaroon ng webinars or e-learning. Ngayon, meron pa rin pong other teaching learning opportunities na ginagawa ang Maynilad Water Academy para po to promote water and sanitation education. So, nagkaroon po kami ng water education tour at ang nag-benefit po dito ay almost 5,138 students across levels, from elementary up to high school and even college. And meron din po kaming mga from graduate school. Nagkakaroon din po kami ng Water and Sanitation Education Forum. So yung po nakikita nyo ngayon sa screen, ito po yung forum na ginanap namin sa Miriam College noong January 2018. Kami rin po ay nagpa-participate sa mga programa ng Department of Education. Ito po, meron kaming Water Education for Teachers. At nagkaroon din po kami ng pagbabahagi, talakayan tungkol sa climate change and water education advocacy for guidance counselors. Kasi po ang mga guidance counselors ay katuwang din po natin sa pag-develop ng mga programa na na makakatulong sa mga estudyante sa pagbuo nila ng mga advokasya. Isa rin pong naging programa namin with PISAY, yung tinatawag namin na Junior Water Camp. Ito po yung nakikita po niyo dyan, yung mga estudyante ng Philippine Science High School na nagkaroon sila ng 80 hours immersion sa Maynilad. Una po yan, nagkaroon sila ng pag-aaral tungkol sa tubig, ano ang tubig, from water source, treatment, distribution, wastewater, and then advocacy. Tapos ang pinaka-challenge sa kanila dyan is for them to come up with a research topic about water and sanitation. So yun po, at naging napaka-productive po yan, yung Junior Water Camp namin na yan. Tapos ang sabi po ng campus director nung panahon na yan ng Philippine Science, sabi niya, naturuan natin yung mga estudyante. Paano naman yung mga teacher? So nagkaroon pa po kami ng ibang water camps, sunod-sunod po yan. Pero hindi po siya natatapos doon. Ngayon, nagkaroon ng water camp para sa mga teachers. Ito po yung shortened version. Yung nakikita nyo dyan, tinitignan ng mga teachers yung sa laboratory na paano ba tinitreat ang water bago ito, ang wastewater bago ito i-discharge back to bodies of water. Tapos, itong naunang picture natin, yung Teachers Water Camp, small group lang yan Pero sabi ng Executive Director, nabigyan na natin sila ng idea, pero mukhang mas maganda kung mas malawak yung maging partisipasyon nito. So, noon pong nagkaroon din po kami ng National Teachers Water Camp with the Philippine Science High School System. Tapos ang nag-participate po dito ay isang subject matter teacher at research teacher. Ang layunin po ng programang ito ay ang mga teachers po natin, after they've learned information on water and sanitation, is for them to come up with a research agenda or a research topic in their respective regions. So yun po yung naging pinaka-culminating activity ng programang to. Nagkaroon din po kami ng teaching demo on water education. Yan po isa pong ginanap namin in partnership po yan with DepEd Bacolod. So yung po modules na pinakita ko po kanina, yung 15 modules po na yun, binigay po namin yung kopya yung mga teachers. Tapos yung mga teachers po, ang ginawa nila, pinakita nila paano ba ituturo yung specific subject na yun sa klase. So nag-demo po talaga sila and napakaganda po ng naging kinalabasan nun kasi pinakita na marami palang paraan na pwedeng gamitin para maituro ang water and sanitation. Nagkaroon din po kami ng partnership with Intramuros Administration. Ang tawag po sa naging programa namin ay Ugnayang Tubig at Kasaysayan. Kasi nga, kung hindi natin malalaman, kung hindi natin pahahalagahan yung mga aral noong nakaraan, parang may possibility na paulit-ulit natin gawin yung mga pagkakamali noon, no? Kaya importante na balikan natin yung kasaysayan upang magkaroon tayo ng direksyon sa kasalukuyan. At ito po ay naging malawak na programa. It's collaborative. Ang mga naging partners po namin dito ay yung Philippine Water Partnership, National Historical Commission of the Philippines, DOT, Intramuros Administration, and DepEd Manila. Yung nakikita po ninyo dito sa inyong screen ay mga student leaders at teachers. Bakit sila yung napili namin? Kasi po, alam namin ang multiplier effect ng mga teachers at students na ang mga impormasyon o yung mga kaalaman na meron sila at pag nagkaroon po sila ng mga programa ay pwede po nila itong maibahagi sa iba ring mga mag-aaral, no? Valuing the link between water and history. Yan po yung isa dun sa essence ng programa na yon. So nakikita niyo po, after nang matuto sila ng impormasyon, nagkaroon din po sila ng pagbisita or tour sa mga museums natin. Meron din po kaming naging programa with Multiple Intelligence International School Youth Innovation Challenge. Yan po. Tapos ito pong nakikita nyo ngayon ay Water and Sanitation Education, Challenges and Perspectives. Ang mga naging participants, ito po ginawa sa FEU Manila. Ang mga naging participants po namin dyan ay mga teachers. Tinuro namin kung ano-ano ba yung paraan na pwedeng ibahagi o ituro ang water and sanitation education. At syempre, hindi po mawawala ang research and development, no? Kaya nagkaroon kami ng partnership with De La Salle University. Nagkaroon po sila ng pagsasaliksik, no? O research tungkol sa food, water, and energy nexus. Yan. Marami pa pong paraan pero kulang po ang ating oras. Sabi, there are multiple ways to teach water and sanitation. At maaaring tatanungin nyo, why are we doing this? Una, we want to promote awareness on the importance of water and sanitation education. Napakahalaga po niyan. We also want to encourage the next generation to choose courses relevant to the needs of the water industry. Kailangan po natin ng mga inhinyero, kailangan natin ng mga scientifico, kailangan natin ng chemist at iba-iba pang professional na tutulong, no, sa ating water sector. At ito po ay magmumula sa kasalukuyang henerasyon at sa mga susunod pa. And also, ginagawa rin po namin ito to provide opportunities to apply classroom learning to actual work setting. Yan. So ano ngayon yung maaaring mga opportunities na pwede nating pagtulungan, no? Isa po dito is we can come up with partnerships. Partnerships to promote water and sanitation education. So bukas po ang Maynilad Water Academy na makipag-partner po sa inyong eskwelahan. At kagaya po ng sabi namin sa inyo, kung kailangan nyo po ng mga modules, kami po ay magbibigay sa inyo ng libreng modules on water and sanitation education. At pangatlo, virtual trainings or online learning. Pwede rin po namin kayong bigyan ng mga learning, ng e-learning pagdating sa mga paksa na may kinalaman sa tubig and water and sanitation. So final thoughts, kagaya po nabanggit ko kanina, the multiplier effect of teachers in terms of knowledge sharing and finding solutions. Natuto ba tayo? Yun yung tanong nung una, di ba? Palagay ko naman natututo tayo kasi humahanap tayo ng paraan. Patuloy ang paghanap ng paraan para magkaroon ng solusyon sa mga pangkaraniwang problema at sa mga bagong problema na ating kinakaharap. Naniniwala po kami sa Academy na education can be a leverage for raising awareness on the importance of water, sanitation, and environment. At with education, we hope our students will learn, and with learning, we hope our environment will positively change. In closing, I want to share this African proverb. Once you carry your own water, you will learn the value of every drop. Maginhawang hapon po sa inyong lahat at maraming salamat po.
Okay, thank you, Sir Oliver. Ayan, natuto ba tayo ang tanong? So, sa mga sinabi ni Sir, sa ating mga viewers dyan, shout out naman. Natuto ba tayo? Ayan, So napakahalaga talaga ng edukasyon para maipakalat natin yung kahalagahan ng water sanitation. So bago tayo mag-proceed sa ating last speaker, ayan. Shoutout natin lahat ng ating mga museum personnel na kasama natin ngayon sa panonood at sa pagkatuto. Sa aming chief ng Historic Sites Development Historic Sites and Education Division, si Ma'am Gina Batuhan, our supervisor, Brian Anthony Paraiso, and all of our curators and museum guides, OIC, na nanonood sa atin ngayon. Thank you for streaming with us. Okay? Now for our very last but not the least, speaker. Ayan. He is the head of the advocacy department of the Maynilad Water Services. Ayan. He led this team in developing corporate social responsibility. And multi-stakeholders partnership initiatives that bagged more than 40 local and international awards. Most recently, 1 platinum and 1 gold trophy from the Global CSR 2019 awards and 2 silvers from the 2019 International Business Awards. He obtained his AB in Legal Management at the University of Santo Tomas and took up MA in Malikhaing Pagsusulat at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Let us all welcome Mr. Joseph Rosman M. Tuason.
Ayan, maginhawang araw at salamat, Ms. Kai. Maginhawang araw po sa mga nanonood at sa mga gumugol ng kanilang hapon para makasama namin sa webinar na ito. Siyempre, salamat din sa ating mga organisador, ang Museo El Deposito at ang NHCP for organizing this webinar. So napakahirap po na sundan ang dalawang doktor. One is a medical doctor and another is a doctor from the academe. Such tough acts to follow. Pero sana po ay makapagbigay ako sa inyo ng iba o alternatibong perspektiba tungkol sa tubig, sanitasyon at kalusugan. Specifically po, ang perspective ng isang community organizer and how is community engagement crucial in the implementation of any water and sanitation initiative. Pero bago po ang lahat, kami po ay nagbato-bato pick ni Doc Oliver kanina kung sino ang magbabahagi tungkol sa aming kumpanya. Let me first share about my organization. Next slide, please. Ayan, Maynilad is the largest water provider in the country in terms of customer base. We supply water to more than 1.4 million accounts, and this translates to roughly 9.6 million people as of end of 2019. Ang aking pong kumpanya was established back in 1997 in a move by the Philippine government, or rather as a response to the Philippine government's action to avert the worsening impact of the water crisis back in the 90s in Manila and other parts of the Philippines. Pagkatapos po ng 10 taon, 2007, Maynilad was reprivatized by new owners. Taking over the company were the Metro Pacific Investments Corporation, DMCI Holdings Incorporated, and eventually, later on, Marubeni Corporation. And they infused fresh capital to the company, which allowed us to significantly improve the water and wastewater services in the 16 cities and municipalities that we serve. Ito po yung 16 cities and municipalities that comprise the western half of the Greater Manila area, mula po to Valenzuela hanggang Cavite City. Ang aming pong sineserbisyohan ay merong total na 540 square kilometers of land area, ganun po kalaki. Sa ngayon po, dahil po sa pagpasok ng bagong management, ang aming po service coverage ay nasa 94% na, at 98% ng aming customers ay merong tubig 24 oras. And back in the 90s and the early 2000s, this was practically unthinkable na magkaroon ka ng tubig ng buong araw. Ayan, next slide. So speaking of water and development, here is a strong claim, an assertion. Water is at the foundation of every effort to improve human living conditions. I'm not sure if everyone can agree to this, but of course, when you speak about efforts to improve health situation in a certain area, for example, or when we talk about boosting economic activity, creating jobs, preserving the environment, when you go into planning, a question that is usually raised at the start, is water available in the area? Tapos meron pa ho yung mga qualifier. If water is available in the area, is it reliable? Is it safe o maiinom? Is it affordable o abot kaya? So ito po ay ilan sa mga critical na mga tanong that don't always get a desired response. After all, next slide. Ayon sa ilang mga pag-aaral, 1 in 10 people globally lack access to safe water. Kung ang ating pong world population sa ngayon po, kung di ako nagkakamali, ay nasa 7.5 billion. I think it's more. So kung ating, I think around 750 million people lack access to safe drinking water, if I did the math right. And much more individuals have no access to a related need, sanitation. Sabi nga ng WHO and UNICEF in a 2017 study, 6 in 10 people lack access to safely managed sanitation. Ang ibig sabihin po nito, basically, ay wala silang access sa maayos o gumaganang inodoro or a working toilet. Sabi nga po kanina ni Doc Ferdinand, yung ating unang speaker, many still practice open defecation around the world. Sila po ay dumudumi sa mga narinig natin sa mga talahiban, sa gilid ng Pasig River o sa ating mga water bodies, which is bad news not only for our community health but also for the environment. So basically, not having access to water and sanitation, para po sa akin, it denies one of the ability to live a decent life, because not only does it degrade your health and your comfort, it also degrades one's dignity. It also degrades human dignity. So next slide, what is being experienced in many parts of the world is also what we experience here in the Philippines. According to a study by JICA, 17 million Filipinos lack access to safe water. Safe water meaning naiinom na tubig. It may not be apparent or felt in urban centers like the NCR here in Manila, but this is especially true in many far-off remote barangays in rural areas. Napakaraming mga lugar pa sa Pilipinas ang hirap o halos walang makunan na malinis na at maiinom na tubig. And perhaps the lack of clean water contributes to the stat that 21 out of 1,000 Filipinos or babies will not even reach their first birthday because of waterborne diseases like diarrhea and pneumonia. Kanina po nakwento na po yan ni Doc Ferdinand. Sabi rin ng JICA in the same forecast, the Philippines, especially urban centers like Davao, Cebu, and Baguio, could face severe water shortage by 2025. Although I think projections might have changed by now since that JICA study was released. The JICA study was I think 6 or 7 years old. At sa tingin ko naman ay meron ng mga ginawang hakbang ang pamahalaan, ang mga water providers, different players to thwart this eventuality. After all, 2025 is 5 years from now. Nakakatakot po. 5 taon mula ngayon. At kailangan na talagang kumbaga ay ratsadahin natin ang mga hakbang para mapigilan ang severe water crisis dito sa Pilipinas. Next slide. Ayan. Opo, mga kasama, before I go on painting a grim picture of the water situation here in the Philippines, let me show you this colorful palette of what we call as the Sustainable Development Goals. Alam ko po na karamihan sa ating mga nanonood ngayon ay mga guro, community educators, community leaders. I know that many of you are very familiar with these goals. But for the benefit of those who needs a refresher, the SDGs are development targets set by the UN back in 2015, supplanting the old Millennium Development Goals. And according to the UN, the SDGs is our blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable development for everyone. So emphasis po, diin po, everyone, lahat po ng tao sa mundo. Next slide. Yan. When we talk about water and sanitation and the SDGs, of course, the most obvious goal on this is the light blue box about water and sanitation, or SDG number 6. And the primary goal of SDG number 6, there are sub-goals under SDG 6. But the primary goal is to achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable water for all. So ang keywords po, safe, ligtas inumin, affordable, o abot kaya para sa lahat. Ngayon po ang karaniwang tanong, is this realistically attainable by 2030? By the way, 2030 is the deadline for the goals. So that's another valid question. Kaya ba natin ang matamo ang mga development goals na ito by 2030? Specifically SDG number 6. Next slide. But going back to my claim at the start, na water is at the foundation of all efforts to improve human living conditions. Even when water and sanitation have their own box in the SDGs, water still has a role to play in the attainment of these 6 SDGs. Yung 6 po na kahon nating nakikita ngayon sa ating screen. For example, for goal number 1, ang sabi, no poverty. Cheap water, although syempre that water alone can do the trick, can help someone get out of poverty. Reliable water supply can address box number 2 and 3. Water can address hunger and health issues. For the rest, since water is sourced from the environment, its sustainability, its conservation also depend on how we take care of our water resources and biodiversity. Next slide. Yan. So while the ones I showed you in the last slide are the more obvious ones, these other SDGs are also anchored on water access, or water access is a need that may be linked to certain facets or aspects of these SDGs. For example, goal number 4, quality education. Reliable water at home allows children to consistently make it in school. Alam po ng mga guru natin yan, alam ng DepEd na ang tubig ay may kinalaman sa absenteeism ng mga estudyante, dahil nga naman kung hindi mo kailangan mag-igib ng tubig, mas marami kang oras para makapasok sa eskwela. Kung hindi ka sakitin dahil sa dulot ng mga waterborne illnesses, ay mas makakapasok ka sa eskwela, mas maganda ang performance mo sa klase. Also, water reduces the inequality experienced by women and girls, and that's goal number 5, gender equality. Reliable supply can also boost infrastructure development for businesses to sprout, for fueling sustainable cities. So again, at the groundwork of plans to hit these goals, we ask that very important question: is water available? Next slide. Yun po. And This is a resounding question, especially by those we call as the marginalized groups. Now, I can't imagine any group, marginalized or not, who doesn't need water. Uh, and of course, there are groups like persons with disabilities and the elderly who also have particular circumstances that need to be overcome first in order for them to gain access to safe water and proper sanitation. Pero po, allow me to focus on three groups to illustrate my case: children, women, and the poor. Yeah, next slide. Why children? Obviously, it's because of their inability to decide and fend for themselves. Why women? Well, ito po, malalim at mahabang usapan to. Women are for reasons deeper than my personal knowledge of patriarchy in history and social politics. Why the poor? Well, obviously for being economically disadvantaged. So ito po, these traits of being marginalized, being a child, being a woman or a girl, and being poor may overlap for some individuals. Halimbawa po, it is challenging enough to be poor in a community where water rates are unreasonably high, na napakamahal. Mahirap ka na nga, ang mahal ng tubig. It is hard enough to be a woman running a household that gets water for only 2 to 3 hours a day at sa madaling araw pa dumarating. Napakalaking hassle. But what's worse than being one of the three is being a combination of 2 or 3. You're poor, you're a woman, you're a mother taking care of 3 young children in a waterless community. So your water woes triple in intensity. Next slide. We go back one slide. So, ayan. So you see now in our experience in making affordable, safe water accessible to these groups, we typically have the following approaches or particular strategies for each sector. For the children, our tool is education. Ano na po yan, malawakan na talakay na po yan kanina ni Doc Oliver. For women, we convert them into community mobilizers. For the poor, we make water and sanitation affordable to them. So indulge me po if I share about Maynilad's experience, how these strategies were executed, starting with the youth or children. Now, early on, of course, we know that schools are key community establishments. Alam ko po na maraming guro ang nakikinig ngayon. And we completely understand that if we want to reach the youth, we start in schools, we start in campuses. And the intervention can be as simple as building a hand washing station in the campus. And it's something that we've been doing since 2009. Na-share po kanina ni Doc Ferdinand. There are a lot of studies that reveal that many children die from waterborne illnesses every day. And these diseases range from simple colds o sipon that may complicate to something worse, and even deadlier ones like hepatitis A and B and gastroenteritis. So we also understand that yearly, these schools struggle for a share of funding from the government, in particular public schools. And we can understand why they tend to prioritize classrooms, books, and chairs over water and sanitation in the campus. Pero in fairness po sa ating mga eskwelahan, even DepEd over the years have seen the effect of illnesses to a kid's performance in class. Kasi nga naman kung sakitin ka, paano ka makakapag-aral ng mabuti, paano ka makakapag-recite, paano ka makakasagot ng tama sa iyong mga exam, kung lagi ka nilalagnat, kung lagi ka may diarrhea, kung lagi kang absent. And this urge our school officials to push health and sanitation among its top concerns or priority agenda in the past years that I've been working in Maynilad. So Lingkod Eskwela program, next, is an intervention that we developed, and its objective is to give students wider access to potable water by installing drinking and hand washing facilities in public schools. Ito pong mga drink wash stations na ito, they also double as learning facilities with information boards that feature fun facts about water, sanitation, and the environment. Kasama na dyan halimbawa ang mga content gaya ng wastong paghugas ng kamay. We also provide assistance to the schools in troubleshooting their water and sanitation facilities. So, next slide. Soon enough po, we realized that building these hand washing stations, helping troubleshoot the plumbing systems of these campuses, volunteering to fix water and sanitation facilities, fixing toilet flushes, broken faucets, natanto po namin na hindi po siya sapat. We soon found out that we have to establish the connection between the tool and the positive habit. For example, we need to establish the link between having this hand washing station and the importance of properly and regularly washing your hands. And that is where education comes in. Next. That's why, apart from the water education modules that Doc Oliver presented, we also developed the Daloy Dunong program. The Daloy Dunong Water Education Drive has become is now our vehicle in emphasizing the value of water, health, hygiene, and sanitation to young kids. Nito pong mga nakaraang taon ay hanggang grade 12 ay aming isinasama sa programa. Eventually, our modules on Daloy Dunong expanded to environmental issues as well, particularly the idea of wastewater or the need to properly collect and treat used or dirty water before we release it back to water bodies like Pasig River and Manila Bay so that they don't cause water pollution. Wastewater, after all, affects community health, and it's also bad news for the environment. At when we were starting, we realized that the concept of wastewater is a fact that even some adults have little idea about. There was very low awareness about it. So we thought, apart from educating the grown-ups, it's also best if we start teaching the concept of proper collection and treatment of wastewater to young customers. Kaya po kami napunta sa mga eskwelahan sa pamamagitan ng Daloy Dunong Water Education Drive. Next slide. Yung po, now let me switch things up a bit before I proceed to women. Let me start first with the poor, particularly the urban poor of NCR, which have always posed unique challenges to us. Next slide. So, ano ba ang sitwasyon natin dito sa Maynila? I need to update my figures because I'm sure there's more now. But with the stats I have on hand, there are around 560,000 informal sector families in Metro Manila. And I would bet that more than half of which are in Maynilad's service area. After all, the old cities of Manila, parts of Quezon City, Malabon, Navotas, up to Cavite are in the West Zone. Next. So yun po. What are we trying to address when it comes to the urban poor? At the core of the water woes of informal sector communities is reliance on expensive, unsafe water. And often, these informal sector families pay up to twice or thrice as much for rationed water. Nirarasyon na ngayon tubig, napakamahal pa. And this is when compared to regular residential customers served by Maynilad in well-off communities. Napaka-komplikado pong usapan nito, pero to summarize, there are legal, financial, technical, and social obstacles that prevent us from bringing safe, affordable drinking water to these indigent communities. Pero para makapagbigay ako ng ilan sa mga obstacle na aking nabanggit. For example, they can present land titles, obviously, a basic requirement, o minsan po, they can afford the one-time settlement of application fees. Masyado po mabigat para sa kanila. Minsan pa po, water syndicates threaten the community members and they control the water supply in the area. Also, illegal connection is rampant and illegal tappings are, again, bad news for community health and the environment. Next slide. So this is why we develop proper water service delivery schemes like the Samahang Tubig Maynilad and Pag-asa sa Patubig Partnership, with the goal of forming a water cooperative in these areas. So we train community members on how to manage their water system. We also rally different stakeholders to find alternatives for the usual documentary requirements and in finding solutions for problems like securing right-of-way for pipe laying. So ayan po, dito po pumapasok kung gaano kaimportante ang community organizing para matugunan ang problema sa tubig at sanitasyon ng isa ng mga komunidad na gaya nito. Next slide. So through these proper schemes, what's the impact? Well, number one, we were able to bring clean water at an affordable price. Of course, this is a given. When water is available in the area, it improves the hygiene and sanitary conditions in these communities. But what I want to highlight here is that eliminating reliance on water syndicates provides savings of up to 900 pesos a month for these families. And that's a fortune already for these households. 920 pesos, that amount goes to additional food on the table, school supplies, even internet subscription, which is a basic need nowadays. Nakikita po natin yan. So now we see how affordable water can make a difference for the poor, for the disadvantaged. Next slide, please. Ayan po. Now I go to water and women. I'm a man, of course, so consider this as a testimonial on the power of women to make things happen in communities. In the years that I've been facilitating the formation of community-based water associations, one thing I noticed, madalas ko po ito napapansin talaga, women are the most vocal and the most active in issues about water and sanitation. Obviously, because they are first to suffer when there's no water. Like I said, they run the household. Typically, they are the ones who run the household. Usually, they are the main carers of children whose health and hygiene they need to attend to. I'm a man, but I can imagine how hard it is to be on your period and there's no water. So it's also a hygiene issue for the women. So sustaining water operations in a community, napapansin ko po, the women are the most passionate. They clearly know what is at stake if we fail, kung kami ay pumalya. And even in our efforts to combine livelihood programs with a water initiative, women still lead the charge. Sila pa rin po yung nangunguna. At isa pong magandang halimbawa dyan, ito po ay taong lagi kong ipinagbabalaki, ay si Miss Lydia Codinera. Ang kanya pong larawan ay nasa kanang bahagi po ng ating screen. Si Lydia Codinera is, she's the president of STM Tondo, and at the same time, she is the president of the Kapwa Cooperative. Kapwa is a producer. They make hygiene and cleaning products. Kapwa is a line of hygiene and cleaning products. Years ago, they set aside a part of what they earn from rationing water to what we call as the Community Development Fund. This fund, they used as capital to build a small business of NATO products. And these are the same set of women who manage the water, hauling hoses to houses, to every household. Tawag po natin dyan ay hila hose method. Of course, some men are involved too, functioning as handymen or performing similar roles. But of course, with the guidance of Maynilad and under the tutelage of the OST, the SWD, and other organizations throughout the years, Kapwa is now an established social enterprise. In 2018, Dija Condinera was hailed by the Philippine government as one of the 20 inspiring Filipina entrepreneurs of that year. Kaya po, saludo ako dyan kay Aling Lydia. By the way, she's a former public school teacher. Next slide. Another community being managed by women leaders is our Green Badge community. And this is a group of seamstresses, mga mananahi po, that they brand Maynilad, our uniform, and convert them into usable clothing that we donate to disaster survivors and the needy. Nagsimula po ang grupo. Well, the group started as they are still part of the team that manages the water supply in their area, and the extra income allows them to pay for the water, to buy more supplies for the family, and afford small luxuries like pedicure. It's their money. Pero yun po, yung mga maliliit po na kasiyahan ay na-afford nila dahil sa dagdag kita. Ito mga nanay, ito po mga kababaihan na ito. And now they also make bags and other items from fresh cloth. So hindi na lamang po lumang uniform ang kanilang raw material. Their service to Maynilad allows us to sustain a green and responsible way to dispose some 14,000 uniform items every 1.5 years, 1.5 years. Kaya, yun po, natutulungan namin sila, tinutulungan din nila ang kumpanya. Next slide. So from the communities at the end of our supply line, lipat lang po ko saglit doon po sa pinagkukunan namin ng tubig o doon sa aming water source, ang aming mga watersheds. And it makes sense, of course, for Maynilad to lead efforts to rehabilitate our water sources like the Ipo watershed. And primarily we do this through a massive multi-sectoral reforestation program. But that's not the thing that I want to highlight here. Next slide, please. Because not surprisingly, there is also a community, or rather communities at the source of our water, the Dumagats. And under the Sining Ipo program, we trained the male heads, yung mga kalalakihan naman, including their chieftains, how to make driftwood sculptures. Driftwood po ay tuod. Ito po yung mga kahoy na nalalaglag na lang mula sa mga puno. And these driftwood typically clog the intake area of our dam, constricting the flow of raw water going to the facility. So it's an operational problem. So instead of getting contractors to clear the area periodically, instead we tap the Dumagats to harvest the driftwood. And we taught them how to turn these pieces of wood into works of art. And now this livelihood program augments their income, and this would discourage them from resorting to slash and burn farming or kainin and other unwanted practices that are bad for the watershed. Now they even make wooden tools for recreation, like sungka blocks. Yung mga nagsusungka dito, siguro familiar tayo doon. And we help them market these items sa labas. Kami rin po mismo ang bumibili ng kanilang mga likhang sining. Next slide. Isa pa hong another thing that didn't come as a surprise for us. While we were targeting the men for Sining Ipo, women are also involved in the effort. Their accountant is a woman. Yung kanilang pong administrative officer ay babae. Well, she's a lady now. She is the community's first college graduate, thanks mainly to the livelihood program. So they help their husbands, they help their fathers, and well, they get their earnings too. But the point is, both ends of our distribution line, source and customer, women are mobilizers. Nakakatuwa po. Next slide. Ayun po. So I hope these demonstrated the different strategies that we've tried and the efforts that we sustain in engaging these communities for water and sanitation. Something that this pandemic only strengthened or well further underscored. We are fortunate now that the water levels in Angat and other dams have been manageable so far. But there's no denying that the hot season, tuwing po tag-init, may summer, the hot season puts a strain on our watersheds. So, but apart from that, the health crisis allowed us to rethink our ways in continuing to empower the marginalized groups for better access to water, better sanitation. Halimbawa po, our efforts to teach proper hand washing year-round through the Daloy Dunong program proved to be a worthwhile endeavor. Sulit pa lang ang aming pagod. Lalo po ngayon na washing your hands has become a knee-jerk reaction or even a survival instinct in the time of COVID-19. Hand washing can now prevent not just diarrhea or pneumonia, it can protect you from an easily transmittable disease without cure so far. So, it has become a life-saving skill for these children. Also, while our Water for the Poor initiative is heavy on community organizing, kailangan namin magpatuloy. Right now, we are forming one in Quezon City. Minamadali namin to dahil lalo na may COVID-19, kailangan nila ng tubig sa lalong madaling panahon. But we have to do away with some steps in community organizing and guide the community members remotely. Buti na lang halos lahat po sa atin ngayon ay meron ng internet connection o may sariling phone at kahit paano ay na-organisa namin sila kahit hindi kami physically present sa mga komunidad. I guess another good thing about this is about the situation is we were able to tap our kapwa community to produce alcohol, hand wash, bleach, and other cleaning products, as well as our Green Badge community to supply face masks to Maynilad and other groups. Some of these items we buy and donate to frontliners. We've been donating to frontliners and other poor communities within our concession area. And we're even set to donate some to some of the poorest schools in the West Zone. Lalo po ngayon ay naghahanda tayo sa pagbubukas ng klase kahit medyo naipagpaliban sa Agosto. Which brings me to my last slide. So, kanina po pinakita ko po yung ating 17 SDGs. And earlier I intentionally skipped highlighting the last SDG, SDG 17, which is all about partnerships. Partnerships, no doubt, play a crucial role in the success of a community-based water initiative. So it's important that we reconcile the needs of different stakeholders. We partner with community leaders, with the schools, with the women, with the indigenous people, with the government, with the NGOs. And in the case studies that I presented, I hope I was able to show how we have created a network of interdependency and value creation among our different stakeholders. And at its core, again, is water. And it's a web of benefits that prove to be more or less pandemic proof. Gumagana siya kahit meron tayong pandemya. So I guess one takeaway, this is very important. When we talk about water and sanitation, we should be empowering the marginalized. We should be helping the disadvantaged. You should be engaging your community. And in the end, everybody gets water and everybody wins. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Sir Rosman. So, napakahalaga talaga ng partnership para maging effective yung isang project na ma-inform at ma-develop natin yung iba't ibang communities na nangangailangan ng clean and safe water. Okay, to do a short recap of our three speakers, Dr. De Guzman discussed yung pinanggagalingan ng ating tubig sa Pilipinas and also the waterborne diseases. Kay Sir Oliver naman ay yung water sanitation and education. Gaano kahalaga yung ating edukasyon sa pagpapakalat ng tamang kaalaman sa ating mga kaguruan at sa mga estudyante sa kahalagahan ng tubig. At kay Sir Rosman naman ay yung water sanitation and community organizing. So, ayan. Shout out tayo sa ating mga viewers kay ating basahin natin. Ayan. Galing kay Vivencia Santa Ana, marami akong natutunan tungkol sa water sanitation. Higit sa lahat, ang kahalagahan ng tubig sa ating buhay. Kung walang tubig, hindi tayo mabubuhay. Ang tubig ay buhay. Ayan, good afternoon from Tasmanian, watching from Bulacan. Oh, so, ayan, Marina Garesa, watching from home in Makati City. At, ayan, kay Miss Carol, malapit na po rainy season. Ayan, uso na ang mga waterborne diseases and leptospirosis kapag rainy season. At, yan. Cecilia de los Reyes. Hi po, watching from home in Novaliches, Quezon City. So, yan. Lastly, Vivencia Santa Ana, maraming salamat po sa Museo El Deposito at sa Maynilad. Sa pamamagitan po ng inyong mga speakers, mas lalo ko pong naunawaan at naliwanagan lubos ang kalagahan ng tubig sa ating buhay. O, dadako naman tayo ngayon sa ating open forum. Our first question for Dr. De Guzman. Since we are working on the government sector, what are your thoughts on the Kaliwa Dam project? Will this project address the water availability deficit to be experienced in Luzon?
It's a very good plan po. I think if fully implemented po ito, it would address the water shortage. But again, it will involve our efforts also. Dapat hindi lang po tayo magde-depend porque nandyan po yan. We still have to conserve water po.
Thank you, Doc. Another question for you. Gaano po dapat katagal pakuluan ang tubig para ma-assure na safe na siyang inumin?
Okay. Na-mention ko po kanina, 2 minutes po rolling boiling. So that means pag kumulo po siya, hindi yung ipapatayin kaagad natin po ang apoy. No? You have to wait for 2 minutes before turning off the fire. No? Kaya nga po kuminsan ibang mga misis nagre-reklamo, Dok, marami pong nababawas kasi rolling boiling po, hintayin namin ang 2 minutes. Sayang po yung nag-e-evaporate daw po na tubig.
Para sa mga nanay, damihan ng tubig. Para konti lang ang mabawas. Lastly, possible po bang mahawa ng COVID-19 sa tubig? Makahawa ng COVID-19 through the water?
Sa ngayon po, no evidence to show na it is water transmitted. Okay? Kaya nga po, ang ating precautions talaga sa COVID is hand washing. No? Hugas po ng kamay, pero kung visibly dirty po, hindi ito kaya ng sanitizers or wipes. So kailangan soap and water pa rin. So ito po ang pangontra natin sa COVID.
Ayan, so no evidence until now. Thank
Yes,
you,
ma'am.
Dr. Guzman. So,
Welcome po.
para naman question para kay Doc Oliver, how can we encourage the youth and the students to have interest in water education? So now that the basic education will go online or alternative learning system.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Kay. Teka, parang nag-echo. Yun. Yung pwede nilang gamitin yung gamification, no, sa pagtuturo ng water education. So merong mga available na sites kung saan doon makikita nila, for example, ang topic is on water cycle. Pwede nilang gamitin yon. Tapos ang alam ko, ang DepEd, ay meron silang tinatawag na DepEd Commons, kung saan marami silang materials na pwedeng gamitin sa pagtuturo ng water and sanitation.
Ayan, thank you, sir. Ayan, katuwang natin definitely ang DepEd. Ayan. So, ngayon, hindi na natin magagawa yung mga face-to-face learning and physical learning kasi dahil nga sa COVID. Pero we have other alternative modules to use. Okay? For Sir Roman, what is the greatest challenge on organizing communities to have access on safe water? Sa mga na-experience nyo, Sir Rosman, alin doon sa mga case studies ninyo ang pinakamahirap talagang napagdaanan ng advocacy ng Maynilad?
Siguro ang masasabi ko kaya na nabanggit ko kanina, sa pag-oorganisa ng mga komunidad para sila ay magkatubig, kailangan mo talagang i-reconcile ang iba't ibang pangangailangan at agenda ng iba't ibang mga sektor. Una na dyan, yung iyong target community o yung mga miyembro ng mismong komunidad. Andun din yung interest ng barangay. Andyan din yung interest ng mga present na NGO. Andyan din yung interest halimbawa ng private lot owner. Kasi when you say informal settler community, syempre kung ako yung may-ari ng lupa, bubuksisihin ko bakit kayo maglalatag ng mga tubo dyan o mga permanenteng pasilidad. Paano kung bigla akong maisipan na iparelocate na sila sa tulong ng gobyerno? So somehow we have to find compromises. We have reassure all those involved na we can make this happen. For example, kailangan namin on a technical facet of what we do, sinasabi namin sa barangay o sa mga may-ari ng lupa na aming ilalatag ng mga tubo ay temporary lamang, above ground. We don't resort to excavations o underground. Everything is temporary. So if one day kinakailangan silang i-relocate, ay madali lamang i-dismantle yung mga tubo. At ito rin ay pinapaunawa namin sa mga residente na kailangan din handa tayo sa ganitong mga klaseng eventuality. Kaya rin ang tubo ay above ground. So yun, ang isa pa ay yung paghahanap ng right of way. Kasi nga kailangan namin ng tulong ng barangay dahil wala silang titulo ng lupa. Kailangan makumbinsin namin makuha namin ang assistance ng mga barangay para mag-issue ng barangay certificate o certificate that recognize this community as a legitimate homeowners association. Kasi ito po yung aming karaniwang binibigay na alternatibo sa titulo ng lupa na kahingian para makabitan namin sila ng tubig. And isa pa hong stakeholder dyan ay ang aming government regulator, ang MWSS. Kailangan namin ipresenta ang mga plano sa kanila at kailangan nilang aprubahan upang maipatupad ang proyektong patubig sa komunidad. So yun, basically, kailangan naming ipagsalubungin o banggain ang iba't ibang ipagbangga ang iba't ibang mga interes ng iba't ibang mga players sa komunidad para sa benepisyo ng mga residente. Ayan.
Hey, thank you, Sir Rosmond. So, ganun pala talaga kadami ng kailangan taong kausapin para lang magkaroon ng access sa clean water ang ating mga communities. So, okay, Sir Jonel.
And okay. Okay po, so again, to all the participants for our webinar, maraming salamat po sa panonood to our Facebook Live. Of course, special thanks din to our speakers, Mr. Rosmond Tuason, Mr. Oliver Santa Ana, and Dr. Ferdinand de Guzman. Thank you very much for giving us your time as part of this webinar program of ours. This is actually our first webinar program for the Museo El Deposito and for the actually for the NCB museums. So again, I hope you learned a lot in our programs, and please like and subscribe to our official social media pages, that is in Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So that is at Museo El Deposito. So please follow our social media pages for upcoming online programs. And of course, we would like to thank as well the whole staff of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines for their support to our museum. And of course, special thanks as well to the Maynilad Water Services and Maynilad Water Academy, and also to the Philippine Academy of Family Physicians. Ms. Kai? And okay. Okay po, so I think that's it. So this is the end of our webinar. So again, thank you to all our participants. Maraming salamat po. So we hope to see you soon to our next programs.